Pick out three key aspects of this organization's context which affect how they approach HRM.
I believe they are very clear cut in terms of how they are placed, how the Southwest is placed in the industry as such. An industry as such is going through lots of changes and lots of challenges. I think the key of them is the constant changes and increase in the cost of jet fuel prices, for example. And attending to that is lots of terrorist attacks and kind of a SARS epidemic some time back. And recently we had this volcano eruptions in Iceland, which created a major concerns with the aviation industry. The second aspect that we looked at as part of our study is there's lots of competition going on in the low cost factor, with not only established full services careers but new entrants coming up in the aviation industry and giving very good challenges to Southwest type of operators. The third aspect I think is generally aviation industry has been more authoritarian, less, I would say, labor friendly, which has kind of added on to lots of labor unrest and leading to strikes and walkouts. So I think that I see today as a three major kind of a context which Southwest faces itself, and they have to come up to a new model to carry working and performing better.
What are the strengths and weaknesses of their approach?
I think if I talk about sort of Southwest and how they've sort of approached sort of HRM, people management, I can sort of try to then demonstrate how that's difficult to imitate. I think six key sort of pillars, if you like, of Southwest's approach: leadership, service culture, recruitment and selection approach, training, communication, and incentives. So if I talk through each in turn, start with leadership. Herb Kelleher, bit of a maverick and clearly embodies the spirit of the organisation. He's clearly got ability, benevolence and integrity, and that combines to create a sense of trust and loyalty from the workforce. Right from the very start, the business had challenges in establishing itself, and I guess his fighting spirit as an individual runs throughout the DNA of the organisation. And he really has created this kind of community spirit within the organisation, and engendered this sort of approach as far as social learning, which I'll talk about in terms of people imitating his behaviour. You've then got different aspects that I guess reinforce that, condition that through training, communication, and what you've clearly got as well is a sense of analogy, so people telling stories about great things that the business is doing. So the service culture within the airline is very different to a lot of the other airlines. You've got frontline people really empowered to make changes happen, and that culture sort of reinforces itself. There's a sense of belief amongst the workforce in a cult or religious kind of focus around the business and delivering positively outrageous service. And you've got frontline people actually looking at doing things differently and better, and that drives productivity throughout the whole organisation. So you've got examples of pilots conserving fuel, baggage handlers having the luggage facing outwards so that you create efficiencies, and you've got pilots mucking in and cleaning aircraft. Some of these things are just not possible in the airline industry because of the sort of difficult relationship with the unions. Southwest doesn't have that. So you've got all these things interacting with one another that are driving this service culture. I talked about recruitment selection. at Southwest, they're absolutely obsessed about finding the right fit of individual, and they go out of their way to really find individuals that fit the mould of the organisation. And there's evidence of really good pilots not getting jobs because they're rude to a receptionist, and things like that are really just a demonstration really about the sort of recruitment and selection process within Southwest. I talked about things like conditioning and reinforcement, and I think through the training that's done within Southwest, it serves really to reinforce and condition people around this sort of service culture that they've got as an organisation, and they heavily invest in that. Examples of things like understanding the challenges of co-workers, so you get an appreciation and empathy towards their challenges as well as your own, which is fairly unique, I guess, in terms of sort of training. I talked about communication earlier. There's a lot of storytelling about success, but also about things that could have been done better, and that spreads the word within this sort of community spirit that they've got as an organisation. In terms of incentives, I think there's this profit share scheme that they were the first airline to really champion, and you've got this sense of actually the performance of an organisation is shared amongst the workforce, and there's, I think, 10% of the stock is actually owned by staff. So all that together, in summary, I mean, if you were to relate it back to things like FEFA's 7 best practices, you could go down the list. I mean, employment security, yes, you've got it at Southwest. They haven't had to let people go. Unique in the airline industry in that sense. Selective hiring, we've talked about. Self-managed teams, we've talked about. High compensation and benefits. Arguably, a lot of the people are not paid as high as other airlines. So maybe a question mark around that. Definitely it's extensive training. You've got this reduced sort of status amongst the workforce, so pilots muck in and leadership muck in to do the very basic tasks within the airline. And then you've got information flow around performance and driving that performance culture. And I think all that together acts as a value chain in itself that's valuable to them as an organisation. It's rare, it's difficult to imitate, and other airlines just can't get close to it. And there's evidence of other airlines trying to mimic Southwest and largely unsuccessfully. So that's really how Southwest have done it, and it's been a real success.
And what do you think they should do differently?
Well, I think, AJ will definitely have some views on this. We debated the point at length, and one of the things we think is going to be challenging for them is the transition as far as the leadership's concerned. How do you replace someone that's been so integral in the whole identity of the organisation? And there are dangers, I think, AJ will probably agree, around when you've done something and done it so successfully, actually changing that can be quite a challenge. And we've talked about examples of other organisations that have found that difficult. And within the module, we've looked at people like M&S. So I guess really it's challenges like that I see face Southwest in the future, and how they deal with that is really going to determine their success. I mean, AJ, do you have any views?
I think you're quite very much in agreement with what we just heard. I think a couple of other points which can be incorporated in the way Southwest goes ahead now. And I think one of them is how they segment their excellence. They have been more of on a people excellence kind of basis, but there's a less of process excellence or something in that line. So either they come out with something that some areas within the segments can be more of people excellence is required, and so some other areas you have more process excellence. So there's a mix of those two things going hand in hand together. Another aspect that we have looked at is there's definitely founder figures or the CEO's impact on the overall culture of the company, but there is very limited aspect coming from the line managers, what they think, what they can do other than what they have been asked to do. So there is a need to bring out that role from the line managers to not only do what they have been asked to do, but bring out some innovation so that their jobs become more kind of good to carry on. And additionally, I think last thing that they can do is bring out some kind of flexibility in the culture. It looks quite rigid, it looks quite regimented, so bringing in some flexibility would add much more value to the organization.